Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. This is Brett Tadlock, TN Artist. So this is the sped up version of the full lesson that I have over on my Patreon page. And in this lesson I'm talking about how do you start building up a painting using textures and underpainting and trying to play around with the different contrasts of value and everything else. So I start with a nice neutral orangish tint kind of underpainting background there, and then over top of which I'm using my impressionistic cloud brush that you can get over on Gumroad to start laying out the clouds and playing around with that, and then talk about, well, how do you build up to get different layers of clouds and really get a separation so that you can get some of that perspective that you have from the atmosphere of a cloud stacking on top of another, and how to use that to then build up movement. But as you can see, it's really just about playing around with the brush strokes and laying in the color to get those textures and that underpainting. And obviously this is something that you can push really as far as you want, but for me I'm just trying to get that feel of motion and feel of atmospheric perspective and just having that dynamic cloud shape. Now the other thing I wanted to do here was be able to lay in some reflective areas that's going to eventually be water. And so one of the easiest ways to do that is to grab some of your sky color and start laying in vertical strokes and smudging them around and then just kind of smearing them around. So I don't want it to be exactly the sky color, but similar. And so that's what I'm doing here. Now it was a little oversaturated, so I created a saturation layer over top of it. And then I took that and put a little blue-gray there and on that saturation layer, which then knocks the saturation back on it. Using the lasso tool and some of my watercolor brushes, I laid in some nice hills that, again, you can get the look of valleys and rises and so forth by just using some different colors and some texture. So as you can see there, that's really quick, but it gives the impression of all these different dips and twists and turns for mountains off in the distance. And that's the whole thing with this painting, is talking about how do you build up different textures to get different viewpoints and everything else. So the next layer that I wanted to work on a little bit in the midground were some grassy reed areas in the back, and just kind of a horizontal separation line there with it. So I was working on that, and again just layering in using the gouache brush and the dry brush and some of the different ones. And then I actually showed how to use the sticker tool to get some of the texture as well, and then smear that out with the palette knife so that you can build up those textures, and then from a distance it looks like grass and it looks like everything you've got there. Now this painting, one thing to notice about this, you've got a decent amount of complementary colors built up in this painting. For example, the mountains back there are kind of a purplish color, and then in the midground I've got that yellowish gold kind of grass look as well. So those two are playing off of each other. And then you've got the blues and purples of the sky and the water mixed with the golds and yellows and some of that the orangish color showing through as well. And then it builds up that nice transition of colors going back and forth and harmonizing together with the use of complementary colors. So here again, trying to play around with building up texture for getting different grasses and different looks and feels. So on the one side of this painting, on the right side, it's more of a lush green kind of grass, and then on the left side, which you'll see here in a moment, I start to build in more of like a dead grass and where things have grown up and died off and kind of reflecting in the water and that kind of stuff. Again, just trying to show different ways to do it. I mean, there's really three different grasses here if you look at that. There's the golden in the background, kind of a something you might harvest kind of looking thing like wheat or something like that. And then on the right you've got more greens and yellows, and on the left you've got these browns and rusty kind of colors as well. And just using everything to build that up and get that really interesting texture. Again, using the pencil, using the pen tool, using the old gouache brush as well to get all of those. And that's really achieved by laying down some and scumbling in some of the grasses there, and then going back and adding a few details over top so that you've got the hint of a lot more detail than what is actually there. So trying to get the reflections in the water, and one of the ways to do that is to come back in and use a stencil to kind of break up the shorelines and stuff and kind of give some dark spaces. And the nice thing about doing it this way is that you can do it underneath the layer and then build it up. Now I go up to about 9 different layers here, and the reason is is because I'm working on basically trying to paint as though the paint were dry underneath. That's the only reason I have the layers. It's just so I don't smudge what's below it, and I can paint on top of it. And, you know, for example, if I was throwing in those tall pieces of grass and stuff like there, I don't want to smear or smudge what's below it. So that's the only reason I've got so many layers, is just because I want to paint on a new dry layer and not affect the layer underneath it and keep building it up. So you'll see me add the layers, collapse everything back down, add the layers, collapse down again, just so that way I can get some of these different feels. But here you can see kind of the contrast, and you know, it's all done up by building layers. And that's one of the things with this little quick painting that I did and wanted to talk about and teach about, was how do you get all of these you know, interesting looking things done in quickly, especially if you're doing just kind of a, you know, landscape study, which is really what this is, and just trying to play around with some of your textures and things like that. So hopefully you can see here some of the different stuff I'm doing with it. You might find it intriguing. If you want to come join over on Patreon, it's only $3 a month. There's tons of content over there. I'm adding more every week and trying to make it fun and interesting to learn. Very interactive over there as far as answering questions, so feel free to join in. But again, the background right there, you know, stenciled in, then going back over top of the stencil and adding in some different details so it doesn't look as stenciled with stuff. And then the rest is just a matter of going around and cleaning up everything that you see. So again, an hour-long lesson over on Patreon, and talking about how to build up and add different things to make interest. So hopefully you've got some out of this, and hopefully you'll join me over there. And the rest of us then, you know, it's a slowly building little group, but we enjoy it. And like I said, only $3 a month, so it's not real heavy on the pocketbook either. So I appreciate you taking the time to be here today and, you know, look at some of this, and hopefully you can see how you build up textures to get some different looks and some interest in a painting, and how you can do it really easily and well with ArtRage 6. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you'll give this a thumbs up and subscribe if you're not subscribed, and definitely post any questions or comments below. I try to respond here just as quickly as I can, and work to make sure that I respond to every comment, because I definitely read all of them and take feedback and learn from what you guys ask for and stuff like that. And I would love to know what you would like to see next. I think I may do a ocean scene. So I appreciate you, and thanks again for watching.